In this podcast episode, Joe Lonsdale shares insights on a broad range of critical global and technological issues, from the persecution of Christians in Nigeria and investments in African defense technology to energy infrastructure, nuclear power, and the geopolitical tension surrounding Iran, China, Cuba, and Venezuela. The conversation also dives deeply into AI advances, military tech innovations, regulatory challenges, and economic revitalization within the United States. Joe highlights the severe persecution of Christians in Nigeria, a major hotspot where radical Islamist groups carry out violent attacks, including mass killings, rapes, kidnappings, and church massacres. He stresses that this is part of a broader global struggle against extremist Islam and communism. To counter such threats, Joe's venture capital firm 8VC invested in Tarara Industries, co-founded by two highly talented Nigerian men who are developing advanced defense technologies such as remote-controlled and autonomous vehicles tailored for African terrain. These innovations aim to empower African nations with affordable surveillance, sentry drones, and autonomous defense systems to protect vulnerable communities and infrastructure from jihadist militias. The discussion moves to concerns about the sustainability and feasibility of current data center infrastructure investments and their rapid obsolescence due to evolving technology. Joe advocates for diversified energy solutions, including natural gas turbines, massive solar farms paired with batteries, coal improvements, and critically, a revitalization of nuclear energy. He notes recent progress in regulatory approvals for new nuclear plant designs and the promise of fusion energy breakthroughs in the late 2030s. Joe sees these developments as key to securing America's energy future, lowering costs, revitalizing industry, and enhancing national competitiveness against China's massive power capacity. Joe explains the U.S. efforts to oust Venezuelan dictator Maduro, a move justified by his regime's alliances with Hezbollah, Russia, and China, which destabilize Latin America. He contrasts this with more limited action in Mexico, attributing delays partly to concerns over voting fraud and political complexities. Cuba's deteriorating situation is also discussed, highlighting decades of failing infrastructure and repression exacerbated by poor governance and lack of property rights, with hopes that renewed U.S. pressure and strategic engagement might spark reform. These efforts, Joe argues, are crucial to halting the spread of far-left authoritarianism and criminal networks throughout the hemisphere. The podcast delves into the long-standing conflict with radical Islamists and Iran's sponsorship of terror groups that threaten U.S. interests and regional stability. Joe draws parallels between historical jihadist threats and current Iranian actions like missile development and nuclear ambitions, emphasizing the risks posed by their ability to target Western cities. Despite the complexities and fears of engagement after decades of costly wars, Joe argues for confronting Iran while the U.S. maintains a lead in AI and military technology, rather than waiting 20 years for a potentially more dangerous scenario. The conversation touches on the transformation of Lebanon, Hezbollah's role, and the strategic benefit of the current war for military innovation. Joe reveals how artificial intelligence is revolutionizing warfare by enabling advanced targeting, battlefield intelligence, and electronic warfare. Using integrated sensor data and hacking combined with AI-powered analysis, U.S. and Israeli forces precisely identify key enemy assets, optimizing surprise attacks and reducing collateral damage. He discusses innovations from companies his firm backs, such as Epicest's ability to neutralize low-cost drone swarms with low-cost interceptors, and Overland AI's autonomous rugged vehicles designed for complex terrains. These technologies promise to disrupt traditional military paradigms by multiplying force effectiveness through autonomy, lower costs, and AI coordination. China's expanding military presence near Taiwan and its use of cognitive warfare to influence U.S. society by funding far-left groups and manipulating internal conflicts is a key part of the geopolitical discussion. Joe explains how China aims to weaken American will to use its strength by amplifying division and promoting anti-American sentiment, both domestically and globally. This includes funding groups in Cuba and supporting contradictory political forces within the U.S. The podcast underscores the essential role of American technological advances and military readiness in countering these efforts. Joe highlights disruptive technology waves, such as urban air mobility, with Joby Aviation's imminent flying car services in multiple states, enabled by AI-accelerated aerodynamic design and hydrogen fuel cells. In manufacturing, his firm supports companies like Bedrock, pioneering autonomous excavation and construction machines with Caterpillar partnerships, which could dramatically reduce costs and increase productivity, bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. The University of Austin, supported by Joe, is introduced as a new educational institution focused on liberty, entrepreneurship, and providing high-quality STEM education free from the constraints of traditional elite institutions. The conversation covers the rapid pace of AI progress and its broad implications, including dramatically lowering healthcare costs through diagnostic AI and virtual primary care. Joe envisions AI driving scientific breakthroughs and transforming industries within the next decade, while acknowledging the risks and the need for protecting children and creators through balanced regulation. He criticizes excessive regulations, which often serve incumbent big businesses over innovation, and suggests simple, nationally agreed-upon guardrails without stifling competition. The topic of artificial general intelligence, AI, and superintelligence is touched upon, with Joe viewing these as longer-term questions while stressing focus on practical AI benefits and responsible oversight now. Joe discusses his firm's involvement with Palantir Technologies in uncovering massive fraud and corruption in U.S. government programs such as HUD and the Small Business Administration. Despite progress in preventing billions in fraudulent payouts, he laments the slow pace of prosecutions, blaming incompetence within parts of the Department of Justice and FBI. Joe advocates for stronger, more aggressive enforcement and suggests creating new nonprofit organizations aligned with conservative goals to counteract left-leaning political influence in funding streams, emphasizing the necessity of fighting fraud as part of broader political and social battles. Joe stresses the complexity and distributed nature of semiconductor manufacturing, noting that although Taiwan's TSMC is crucial, it depends on a global ecosystem, including U.S.-based design and manufacturing companies. He underscores the danger posed by potential Chinese control over these assets, but points out that production disruption does not translate into a total U.S. inability to build military drones or AI systems. He also highlights challenges with rare earth materials, largely sourced from China, which affect motor and magnet manufacturing for drones and weapons. Joe remains optimistic about U.S. capacity to expand chip fabs domestically, with projects like Elon Musk's mega-fab ambitions. With a focus on tactical innovations, Joe describes how companies his firm backs are shaping future battlefield dynamics through autonomous vehicles, drone countermeasures, and AI-enhanced electronic warfare. He illustrates how cheaper, autonomous ground vehicles and autonomous naval vessels could outmatch traditional armored vehicles and large warships by quantity, persistence, and operational flexibility. This vision reflects a broader transformation toward digitally networked, AI-managed forces, vastly more responsive and cost-effective than current legacy platforms. Joe expresses an optimistic outlook on America's resurgence driven by entrepreneurship, AI advances, revitalized manufacturing, smarter governance, and renewed defense innovation. He warns against internal political divisions and left-wing policies he sees as destructive, but is confident the U.S. holds a technological and cultural advantage that will reestablish it as the preeminent global power. He emphasizes the need for pragmatism, focus on real-world problem-solving, and renewed national purpose in confronting global and domestic challenges.